Who's that picture on your Skype? You changed your picture again. I recognize the face, an actor of some
Uh,
description.
yeah, that's an old character actor.
It's
Oh
not from
God, I can't
it's
remember.
not
He
from
plays
Faulty
Mary
Towers.
Tyler Moore's father in the Mary Tyler Moore show. His dad, Bill Quinn. Bill
Bill
Quinn.
Quinn.
Yes,
Wow.
you recognize his face?
I recognize the face. I didn't
Yeah,
remember who the
yeah.
actor
He's
was.
an old character. Always looks like everybody's pediatrician. He looks
Oh
like
yeah,
everybody's doctor. Yeah. And anyway, played Mary Tyler Moore's father in her '70s show.
interesting. How are you feeling this morning? I'm just trying to be.
Somehow, I don't really think you're putting all of your mental capacity behind that comment.
I'm just really
Interesting.
sore from
Interesting.
building my herb
Are
garden
you
yesterday.
sore?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Are
yeah.
you sitting in a tub of hot water and
No, no, we're both walking around as if we'd been hit by a bus here this morning, and because Madame
well, I
has bunions. Is it bunions they call?
yes, at the end
Yeah,
of your feet under
quite
near your big toe.
quite painful apparently.
They are painful.
Yeah,
My dad had bunions as big as globes. They were just well, you can imagine, skinny feet in
cocktail
mud
onions.
crane. What's that?
Cocktail onions.
Cocktail on. Oh yeah, yeah. So
So I'm
I
learning all
got
about.
them. I inherited those.
All right, let's get off to a little quick brain stream here this morning. We were talking about masks yesterday, and as of tomorrow, the 20th of April, federal regulations are changing, and you will need to have a non medical mask when you are arriving or departing from a federally controlled airport. And that's pretty well every airport in the country. Um, Problem is, it's a chicken and egg thing. You can see the headlines coming this week. Man, denied flight to Winnipeg to see his ailing mother because he didn't have a mask. So I'm not quite sure where these masks are to be purchased, but this is in going to be enforced as of tomorrow. So be
Well, do
aware
I
of
do
that.
I see a run on pharmacies all over the country the way
I
we had a
don't
run
know.
on toilet paper?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Perhaps that is to be expected. I don't know who has any in stock. We were talking yesterday about this piece which I saw in La Presse, des masques et des blouses d'entreprise d'ici. So they're plugging Quebec-made masks. You'll find this. I'll put the link up to the article, and you'll see a few links. This is the company I ordered from yesterday, Shan, which is a swimwear and fashion company based in Laval. I'll give you a review of that when they arrive. They also make gowns. This unfortunately named company, Body Bag by Jude, makes
Ooh.
masks. This is also a Quebec company. I'm sure that name predates the pandemic, of course. It's probably suggesting one's garments are a body bag of some sort. But anyway, um, this is another
Pretty
one.
unfortunate.
Yeah,
Yep.
messagefactory.ca makes masks. There's also a company called Annie50 or Annie50.com. And of course, they're getting into all sorts of fashion trends and things. So you can expect to see this spring and summer if you're out and about, if we do get out and about. I found this on Consumer Reports yesterday, and it's a
Hmm.
nice cut down, cut to the quick look at how masks should be worn, what types of masks you should purchase. I put the link up on my page and on the GrumPod page. Technically, you're looking for something like this, which has a couple of layers. It could be made out of practically any cotton or synthetic. You'll see reports where they say, well, this cotton is better than this and that and the other thing, but it's not really worth getting into that. The N95s, as we talked about yesterday, are to be reserved for medical personnel and as well airlines. You'll see if you happen to have to fly in the coming days or weeks, you will see airline people, flight attendants and others wearing N95s because they have to protect themselves. This type of mask as well is meant to be reserved for medical staff, although a lot of these are out on the market right now. So where are you going to get them? I don't know. I've ordered by mail. This is a little piece from from Consumer Reports, and they get into some very basic information: how to wear them, how to attach them. Kids under 2 are not to be equipped with masks. People who are incapacitated are not to be equipped with masks. They indicate clearly how you should wash them and take care of them. So the idea here is you're not protecting yourself technically as much as you're protecting others from anything you might be expectorating in all this. So you can expect to see a lot of this in the news in the coming weeks. Now, I was thinking of masks yesterday. I flashed on this for some reason. Eyes Wide Shut. This is Kubrick's last movie from 1999. Of course, this is not a surgical mask or a non-medical mask, but for some reason my brain went there. And then it went to this guy who was in the movie, of course, Sidney Pollack.
Great actor.
Who's
great
been
director.
Gone for a dozen years already now. And I thought of this scene, of course, in Tootsie, where he's yelling at Dustin Hoffman, "You're a tomato."
Strindberg in the park. And he mentioned years later that he really didn't have to do much acting when he was on the set with Hoffman. He wanted to slap him silly.
Yeah. And of course, Hoffman ends up by saying, "What is it? I put on an endive salad that the critics raved for," or whatever it was. An outstanding scene. It's just, and Hoffman, for all his flaws too, is quite the performer. He chews up that scenery. So
yeah. But as Pollack says, the character Michael, complete pain in the ass, is not a stretch for Hoffman.
From Hoffman, yeah, you could read all about that. So I stuck with Pollack, and I thought of something else, something I watched not too long after it came out in 2006, I think, Sketches of Frank Gehry by Sidney Pollack. This is a bit of a doc, a bit of a bio that Pollack shot. Frank Gehry and Sidney Pollack were the best of buddies. And Pollack, after many months of cajoling, talked Frank Gehry, who's a famous architect, of course, as you know, into allowing Pollack to shoot him in his daily life and going about his design work and having coffee at home, and they would chat. It's a very, very, very charming piece. If you're looking for something, if you're a fan of Frank Gehry's and or Sidney Pollack as well, because we see Sidney, you hear him talking in the background, and they're chatting like buddies. So it's very heartwarming and very informative. And of course,
can it be streamed?
I don't know. I'll have to check into that. If I find a streaming connection for it, I'll put it on the page. And Frank Gehry, if you're not familiar with him, you must be. But if you're not, this is one of his buildings in Las Vegas. It's the Lou Ruvo Center for Brain Health. And isn't that an apropos design for a building for brain
Gehry
health?
To me.
That's just outstanding.
You don't know whether he's putting it up or tearing it down. Yeah, there.
There's another one in Prague, very famous. It's become a landmark in Prague. This one is one of his first. This is in Bilbao. This is a museum, Guggenheim in Bilbao. And there's a little addition at the Royal Ontario Museum in Toronto, which was designed by Frank Gehry. And Frank Gehry, as I remembered watching the sketches, I paused the DVD at one point because I kept thinking, wait a minute, I'm listening to Gehry speak. There's an accent there. And sure enough, and I knew very little about Gehry at the time, sure enough, Frank Gehry's a Toronto boy. He was born in Toronto in 1929.
Yeah. Canadian.
And I got out of my seat, I Googled him, and I spent the next hour reading up on his background. Born Frank Goldberg, he changed his name to Gehry thereafter, and big Toronto Maple Leafs fan, and that's what he was talking about in the piece with Pollack. So very, very charming, very interesting man. And this is a project that was, at least up until January, being discussed for construction in Toronto, a couple of towers, what they call super talls, which are 300 meters or taller. This was to be developed by Gehry and the Mirvish family, Honest Ed's and the Mirvish Theater and other investments. I don't know if this will ever see the light of day, but they're talking
Royal Alex.
And this got me thinking about other buildings that do exist in the Toronto area. These are two buildings that have been up for several years in Mississauga, and they've become landmarks there too. And they've often been referred to as the Marilyn Monroe Towers because of their curves. And of course, I thought immediately of Madame. 57 years on now since her death, and her estate is still earning money. Her estate earned $13 million US last year in 2019.
More money than she ever earned in her lifetime.
It's just quite something. And then I continued a bit of research on Marilyn Monroe, and quite by happenstance, there is a new book that's been published just a few days ago about by I think the author's James Patterson. What's the book again? Yes, James Patterson, The House of Kennedy. And he talks about that infamous night in 1962 when she sang Happy Birthday to JFK. And it turns out that Bobby Kennedy was the one who was behind this whole thing, and that JFK really had very little to do with it. And so Bobby is taken to task more or less in the book here for having been the instigator and the quote troublemaker behind that whole story. So I found that very interesting. This was published, I think officially about a week ago, and it's received some fairly good reviews. So this is The House of Kennedy by James Patterson and Cynthia Fagan. So maybe something you might want to look into when you're.
Well, I remember the line from Peter Lawford, part of the Rat. Peter Lawford was at that event, and of course Marilyn Monroe was, as usual, late, and he said, "Ladies and gentlemen, the late Marilyn Monroe."
And she would
takes on her rather.
She would be dead a few weeks thereafter.
So Bobby was the one who instigated
that.
Yeah.
Troublemaker.
Jack saying, "I will have a happy birthday" after such a wholesome rendition.
That's right.
Happy birthday.
And at the end of the piece, you find out that Jackie Kennedy was not terribly upset at the whole thing. She said, life's too short to be upset with people like Marilyn Monroe. But when she found out that Bobby had been the one who was stirring up the shit, then she blew a gasket at that point. Yeah.
But amazingly, of course, after Jack died, she and Bobby became very, very close.
Yeah. But
very
still,
close. They were dependent upon each other.
Anyway, if you're into that whole narrative, it continues to fascinate people to this day. So.
Well, and Jackie Kennedy knew Jack Kennedy. She knew him.
Yeah.
She knew what he was about.
Sure.
And, anyway, thereby hangs a tale. I've got a few things to share for you.
All righty.
Things I'm afraid of.
Oh, my.
Okay?
And there's a picture of me. So we're off.
I'm afraid of climate change, as we all are, I think. I don't think about it every day, but it is one of those days that occurs to you that the world is changing. The world of the 1950s and 60s and even 70s, we're just, no matter what we do, we can ameliorate things. And it is amazing that this pandemic has given us more time. Well, not given us more time, but has improved pollution around the world. There are people in New Delhi who can actually see the sky now. Chinese cities, of course, which are notorious for their pollution, are actually getting clear days. But this is one of the things I worry about.
Yeah, but how long is it going to last? I was listening to a piece this morning, and there are difficulties with the First Nations people up north are having a great difficulty dealing with the stress related to what they are witnessing now, and in conjunction with the pandemic too. So they're having to resort to counseling and all sorts of things. So it is an interesting, fascinating, and unnerving period for sure.
Yeah. And interesting you mentioned it. A lot of Canadians who, most of us live within 100 miles of the U.S. border may not know that some of the most catastrophic changes will be happening in the northern Arctic part of Canada. The changes that will be the most pronounced are going to be happening up there. I'm afraid of something hitting the earth.
Really?
They're throwing stuff out.
So we're doing a deep dive this morning, are we? So
they're throwing stuff.
Every morning
you're on the porch like this.
Okay. Tie your bathrobe, please. Please tie your bathrobe.
Someone call Robert Duvall to get it. But you're right. Out there in the front porch, Somebody's throwing stuff at us.
I could just
Yeah.
see it.
Mr. Melman down the street, he's been up to something in his garage. So that frightens me, as does the Gordian knot. I don't think we're ever going to be able to loosen that up. He
The
had to whack
Gordian
away at it.
knot.
The
Okay.
Gordian knot. It's just one
Okay.
of those.
And
Every once in a while, I have a bad night and I dream about.
who
about
was
the Gordian.
who was Gord, by the way, in the first place?
It was named after not a person but a place in the ancient world, and I've forgotten most of the details. It's just the fear that remains.
A fear of the Gordian knot.
Yeah. Which shows you again what kind of research. I looked it up. I've looked up the Gordian knot 700 times, and 5 minutes later, I've forgotten exactly what the hell the damn thing is. But look at that. That could get caught in your throat. You could choke.
Oh, okay. I could see you sitting upright, the Gordian knot, and then running to your desk. God.
Where is Gord anyway? Nobody's seen him together with that knot at the same time, right?
And I'm worried about an herb garden. So, Jesus.
Philadelphia sports fans. I'm very afraid that they are the worst sports fans in the world. At a football game before Christmas many years ago, they threw snowballs at Santa.
Okay.
And the old joke is they go out to the airport and boo bad landings. They are just awful fans. Golf. Maybe it's the pants.
It's the fashion, is it? Oh, I played golf once. I told you the story. I played in the Larry Robinson Invitational.
Oh, was that you and Tom?
No, it was me and two accountants, and Gump Worsley was the foursome.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Two accountants, very nice guys, and Lorne Worsley, who was an absolute sweetheart. I'd grown up watching the Habs as a kid, and I was just thrilled to meet Gump. And he and I had the best of times. Gump Worsley taught me how to hit a golf ball, and he was just the sweetest, most charming man. Is Lorne still around?
No, he died quite a few years ago.
Oh,
but
okay.
He was one of those guys. I mean, you saw him in person.
Yep.
He looks like a big teddy bear, and you think, how could this guy be? He was an incredible athlete.
Yeah.
All-round athlete. I bet you he hit a ball pretty well.
Just the nicest man. And of course, they came up to me after we played golf, and I was there on the auspices of the CBC. We're there to raise money for charity. And they came up to me and they said, don't ever come back here again. Just don't ever come near this golf course again. And I've never played golf since, but I have very, very fond memories of Lorne. And I'm sorry I've forgotten the names of the two other guys on the foursome, but it was a really, really fun afternoon.
Did you keep your scorecard?
No, I don't even remember. I think they sort of gave up on me about halfway through, and they said, the clubhouse is over on the left here, and that way off.
And off you went to join Charlie Gursky at the bar.
Yeah, I had a couple of beers with Lorne. For me, that was the highlight of the day, for sure.
A real mensch, a real Verdun boy. Did you get to wear pants like that? I mean, did you go full form into it? No.
I did not. No, it was, but it was a lot of fun.
Golf frightens me, as do these things. I find that loafers are bad enough, but loafers that are, what's the word? I can't think of it. I really do have to read. Yeah. Yeah. They scare me. And with the little golden.
Why did they scare you?
There's something sneaky about them. When you're not looking, they're gonna whack you at the back. Just look at that thing. Take one good look at that thing, and you think
the Gordian knot. Something's bad is going to happen.
Yeah. So these velour. Yeah.
Okay.
So those, and finally, of course,
change my
John Nance Garner, the Vice President of the United States under FDR. He scares me.
He does just because of that look, or did he do something?
The tie, the card, the comment, the office of the vice president isn't worth a warm bucket of. People said spit, but he actually said piss.
John
and he was right.
Nance Garner. Okay.
John Nance Garner, Texas boy, prickly John Nance Garner. And I was going to put up a Studebaker, but I couldn't find a picture. But Studebakers, they'll give me bad nights.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Wow. So, but you're okay now, are you?
Yeah. I'm doing just fine.
Stop clicking that damn button. Okay.
Well, that was together again.
That was entertaining. That was a lot of
you
fun.
Got a lot of stuff.
Your
mind really does just
It's one of those linear things, and there's a lot of
but the line.
Yeah, but it loops back to Marilyn Monroe, and then it loops back
to
out.
Create a Gordian knot.
To create a Gordian knot. I'm gonna have to look up Gordian knots. I have no idea what the Gordian knot is. Was it?
Well, it was Alexander the Great who tried to tear it apart. It was a knot that could not be loosened. And I forget whether the Gordo part was named after a town of the ancient world or what it was, but it was one of these things like Arthur's sword, which couldn't be pulled out of the rock. It was one of those things that could not be loosened. But I probably should have taken notes and written it down, because I looked up Gordian knot 700 times. I always forget what.
Without even providing us with any details of what the Gordian knot is. Okay.
The hanging gardens of the Gordian knot. No, you've mixed it up again, Dave. That's wrong.
Of course, there's somebody screaming at their screen right now.
Yeah, that's right. John Nance Garner. Yeah.
21 minutes and 38 seconds for this shit. Okay.
It's absolute gibberish. Okay. Well, there we are then. That was there it was.
Tomorrow is 420, so I'm going to be covering off on 420. It's Cannabis Day tomorrow.
Yes, your birthday.
It is my birthday, but I will be covering off on the infamous and famous things related to 420.
What is this thing? What is this thing called love? Adame.
Goodbye. Behave yourself in the interim here. And I'm going to have to look up Gordian knots now.
I gotta pick up I got my date for my big order to pick up my groceries later today. So I'll let you know how it goes.